The silence of space was broken only by the faint hum of the alien ships, their sleek, dark forms cutting through the void like shadows. A fleet of ships, hundreds strong, moved steadily toward Earth. The aliens aboard were a technologically superior race, their civilization far beyond anything humanity could dream of. They communicated with each other in calm, calculated tones, their eyes glowing with confidence. The leader of the fleet, a tall, imposing figure with piercing eyes, stared out the window of his command ship, observing the blue-green planet that lay ahead. Earth, he muttered with disdain, his voice echoing in the quiet chamber. A primitive world, teeming with weak, unworthy beings. They will fall easily under our control. His second in command, a shorter, but equally powerful figure, nodded. Indeed, their technology is no match for ours. It will be child's play to conquer them, enslave their kind, and extract their resources. The aliens' mission was clear: conquer Earth, strip it of its valuable resources, and subjugate the human race. To them, Earth was nothing more than a small, insignificant planet in the far reaches of the galaxy, a world of no consequence. They were a race of conquerors, accustomed to wiping out weaker species and taking what they wanted. Humans were no exception. But as the fleet drew closer to the planet, something strange began to happen. The deep, mysterious silence of space was disturbed by a faint signal, almost like a whisper in the cosmic wind. The signal was weak but unmistakable, and it emanated from Earth. At first, the aliens dismissed it as interference, perhaps from a malfunctioning satellite or some natural phenomenon. But as they focused their advanced instruments on the source, their expressions grew tense. The signal was unlike anything they had ever encountered. This is not possible," the leader said, his voice laced with confusion. "This signal, it's originating from Earth, but it's far more advanced than anything we have seen from them." The second in command frowned. "Are you suggesting that Earth has developed technology beyond our own?" The leader's gaze remained fixed on the screen, his mind racing. "No, it's impossible. They are supposed to be primitive, a barely evolved species. Yet this technology, it's as if it's from an entirely different era. Something ancient, but incredibly advanced." The aliens' curiosity began to shift into concern. Could Earth hold some hidden weapon, some lost technology that could threaten their plans? It was an unsettling thought, one that had never crossed their minds before, but there was no time for hesitation. The mission was clear: conquer Earth. They would deal with whatever this anomaly was later. The alien fleet entered Earth's solar system, and the tension aboard the ships escalated. The once imposing planet, full of promise and resources, now seemed more like a puzzle, a mystery to be solved. The alien commander ordered his ships to continue their approach, unaware that his every move was being watched. Back on Earth, strange things were happening. Scientists and military personnel across the world began to notice unusual fluctuations in energy levels. At first, it was dismissed as nothing more than a technical glitch or a bizarre natural event. But as the fluctuations grew stronger and more frequent, the global defense networks were put on high alert. There were whispers of an incoming threat, but no one knew from where. As the days passed, more and more people felt an uneasy sense of something looming, something they couldn't quite grasp. The world held its breath, unaware of the danger that was fast approaching. Panic spread quietly at first, then grew. Some thought it was a natural disaster. Others feared it was the beginning of a war, but no one could explain the strange energy readings that seemed to come from nowhere. Beneath the chaos, however, something extraordinary was happening. The defense systems of Earth, long kept dormant in secret, were slowly powering up. Hidden satellite weapons, deep space missile systems, and advanced cloaking devices, all powered by Earth's forgotten technologies, began to come to life. The systems had been buried beneath layers of encryption and secrecy for years, waiting for the right moment to be awakened. Now, that moment had arrived. The alien fleet crossed into Earth's orbit, their ships hanging silently in space, the vast emptiness of the void stretching around them. They were ready to strike, confident in their superiority. But as they drew closer to the planet's surface, they felt a sudden shift. The atmosphere seemed to hum with energy, a tension in the air that they couldn't quite place. The alien commander felt a flicker of doubt, a fleeting moment of uncertainty. "Prepare for immediate deployment," he ordered. "We'll make our move as soon as we pass the planet's atmosphere." But before they could act, something unexpected happened. A wave of energy surged through the fleet, momentarily disrupting their systems. The alien commander's eyes widened in disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded, slamming his fist on the control panel. The energy disruption was brief, but enough to throw the fleet into disarray. For a brief moment, the invaders' confidence was shattered. This wasn't supposed to happen. Earth was supposed to be easy. The strange signal, the energy fluctuations, it was all too much. Something wasn't right. Meanwhile, on Earth, the global defense systems were now fully operational. Humanity's last line of defense was ready, but no one knew if it would be enough. The world watched in suspense, knowing that this moment would decide their fate. High in space, the alien fleet began to power down their shields, preparing to attack. But the humans, despite their earlier confusion and fear, had something the invaders could never predict: resilience, determination, and a secret weapon that was now poised to defend their world. As the alien fleet approached the planet's surface, the story of Earth's struggle for survival was just beginning. The clash between human ingenuity and alien power would determine whether Earth remained a forgotten, insignificant world or emerged as a force that would change the galaxy forever. This was the moment the aliens had failed to see coming. As the alien fleet loomed just beyond Earth's atmosphere, a deep sense of dread settled over the world. In every corner of the globe, leaders and soldiers alike received an emergency alert. The moment they had feared for years had arrived. Earth's defense systems, long dormant and hidden from the public eye, had been activated. These were no ordinary weapons, but next-generation technologies, sleek, powerful, and designed for one purpose: to protect humanity from threats like this. The weapons, developed over decades in secret, were now Earth's last hope. The weight of the moment was palpable. The atmosphere was thick with tension, each passing second feeling like an eternity. Military bunkers, once quiet, were now buzzing with activity. Soldiers scrambled to their stations, engineers worked frantically to keep the systems running, and leaders made rapid decisions, knowing that the fate of the world rested on their shoulders. Amidst this chaos, a young soldier, Benner, stood frozen in the operations room of a military base. He had only recently joined the military, eager to serve his country, but he never imagined this would be his first battle. The alarms blared in his ears, and his heart pounded in his chest. His palms were sweaty, and his legs felt like lead. Fear threatened to swallow him whole, but he forced himself to focus. He had no choice. The commander's voice cut through the noise. "Benner, you're up. Get to your fighter. The first wave of alien ships is entering Earth's atmosphere." Benner's breath caught in his throat. This was it, his first real fight. He had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the fear he felt now. He had never imagined himself in a position like this, not on the front lines of an alien invasion. The weight of the moment was overwhelming. He was just one soldier among many, but if he failed, it wouldn't just be his life at stake. It would be the lives of millions. His mind flashed back to why he had joined the military in the first place. Growing up, he had always admired the soldiers who defended their country, the ones who put their lives on the line to keep others safe. He had wanted to be one of them, to protect his family, his friends, and his country. But now, faced with the reality of what was coming, his courage was being tested like never before. As he raced toward his fighter, Benner thought about the personal sacrifices that had brought him here. His parents had always supported his dream, but they had never wanted him to go to war. The weight of their concern rested heavily on his shoulders. But there was no turning back now. This was his moment. The fighter jet's cockpit sealed around him, and the world outside became a blur as he lifted off into the sky. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was anything but. As Benner joined the other pilots in the sky, a series of explosions echoed in the distance. The alien fleet had begun their assault. The first wave of alien ships descended upon Earth's major cities with terrifying speed. They unleashed a barrage of missiles, their destructive power capable of leveling entire cities in seconds. Panic spread like wildfire across the globe as civilians watched in horror, helpless against the overwhelming force of the invaders. But then, just as all seemed lost, a breakthrough occurred. A cloaking device, hidden in plain sight for decades, activated. A defense satellite positioned in space intercepted the alien missiles, saving millions of lives in a single moment. The missiles exploded harmlessly in the vacuum of space, far from Earth's atmosphere. It was a victory, but it was only the beginning. The alien forces were relentless, and the real battle had just begun. As Benner and the other pilots engaged the alien ships in high-tech dogfights, the true power of Earth's secret weapons became evident. Advanced cloaking technology allowed the human ships to vanish from the aliens' radar, giving them the element of surprise. Each fighter jet was equipped with weapons far beyond anything the aliens had encountered, from energy blasts capable of disabling their shields to EMP bursts that disrupted their systems. Benner's heart raced as he soared through the sky, dodging alien fire. His first few moments in battle were a blur of adrenaline, his focus narrowing to the target in front of him. He had no room for fear. He had to fight. Every time he fired his weapons, he felt a surge of power. But each time an alien ship went down, a pang of guilt gnawed at him. The faces of his family, his friends, flashed in his mind. He had promised to protect them. He couldn't fail. The dogfights were intense, a flurry of fast-moving ships weaving through the sky, their weapons lighting up the atmosphere in bursts of light. The sky was alive with chaos. But amidst it all, Benner began to feel something new. Fear had not disappeared, but it was being replaced by something stronger, resolve. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the entire planet, for humanity. But the battle wasn't just in the sky. Beneath the surface, the alien fleet had deployed ground forces, and the cities were beginning to fall. The momentary success of the cloaking technology had bought humanity precious time, but the aliens were adapting quickly. Their advanced weaponry was too powerful, their numbers overwhelming. Benner, in the heat of battle, could only focus on one thing: survival. With each move, with each missile launched, with each enemy ship disabled, he knew that the battle for Earth had only just begun. And despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, he held on to one truth: he was ready to fight for humanity. As the first wave of alien ships continued their relentless assault, Benner's resolve strengthened. This was more than just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of the human race, and he wasn't about to let Earth fall without giving everything he had. As the battle raged on in the sky, the atmosphere above Earth crackled with the power of advanced weaponry. Benner and the other pilots were locked in fierce dogfights with the alien ships, their weapons streaking through the air like bolts of lightning. But the fight was not only in the heavens, it was about to spill onto the streets of Earth's cities. The aliens, in their determination to conquer Earth, unleashed a terrifying new wave of forces, robotic soldiers and bioengineered warriors, designed for one purpose: total annihilation of humanity. These invincible creatures, towering and imposing, descended from the sky, their metallic limbs clanking on the ground as they marched relentlessly toward Earth's cities. The alien army had begun to invade, and their brutal, overwhelming force would crush anything that stood in their way. In the chaos of battle, human soldiers like Benner faced the terrifying realization that they were not just fighting alien ships in the sky, but also fighting for their lives against these ground forces. The robots, impervious to conventional weapons, tore through military barricades, and cut through human defenses with ease. Their sheer size and strength were enough to send fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned soldiers. But Earth had a secret weapon of its own, a hidden technology designed for this exact moment. Beneath the streets of the cities, military engineers had prepared a network of EMP mines, devices capable of disabling any electronic systems in range. These mines were Earth's only hope against the relentless mechanical onslaught. With the alien robots closing in on the human soldiers, the decision was made. The EMP mines would be activated. As the signal was sent to trigger the mines, a powerful shockwave reverberated through the city. The ground trembled, and a series of explosions rocked the streets. Alien robots, once unstoppable, suddenly froze in place, their systems fried by the EMP. For a moment, the humans had the upper hand. The invaders were caught off guard, their forces temporarily disabled. But it wouldn't last long. The aliens would soon adapt, and the battle was far from over. Benner and his team moved swiftly through the urban terrain, navigating narrow alleyways and ruined streets. The night was alive with chaos. Aerial bombardment from the alien ships lit up the sky, casting an eerie glow over the destruction below. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground shook beneath their feet as alien weapons rained down on the city. Benner's heart raced as he and his comrades fought their way through the streets, desperately trying to hold their ground. The robots, although momentarily disabled, were quickly replaced by a new wave of alien soldiers, biologically engineered beings, faster and stronger than anything Earth had ever seen. They moved like shadows, their sleek, powerful bodies weaving through the debris. Benner's hands gripped his weapon tightly as he prepared for the next wave. His mind was focused, but his body was tired. His legs ached, and his heart was heavy with the weight of the fight. But there was no choice. He had to keep going. The aliens advanced, forcing Benner and his squad into close-quarters combat. The narrow alleyways became a battleground, the sounds of gunfire and explosions echoing through the city. Benner's breath came in sharp gasps as he fought tooth and nail, his weapon flashing with each shot. The enemies seemed endless, and the destruction around him was overwhelming. But he wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for his family, for his home, for every person he had ever loved. As the fight intensified, Benner's mind flashed to the faces of his loved ones, his parents, his friends. He was fighting for them. He couldn't let them down. With each alien he took down, he knew he was one step closer to victory, but the battle was far from over. One of the alien soldiers lunged toward him, a blur of speed and power. Benner barely had time to react as the creature's claws raked across his armor. He staggered back, his chest pounding, but his training kicked in. With a swift motion, he aimed his weapon at the alien's weak point, pulling the trigger. The alien dropped to the ground with a metallic thud. But more were coming. Benner could hear the heavy footsteps of the aliens advancing from all directions. There was no time to waste. He had to keep moving, keep fighting. The night was alive with the sound of combat, and the city around him was slowly being reduced to rubble. Amidst the chaos, Benner's team began to make their way toward a critical position, an abandoned building where they could regroup and plan their next move. The battle was far from over, but it was clear that Earth's forces had gained some ground. The EMP mines had given them a temporary advantage, but they knew the aliens would soon adapt. The fight for Earth's survival was now a matter of strategy, of holding on just a little longer. The sounds of distant explosions continued to echo in the night, and the battle raged on in every corner of the city. Benner knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be long and treacherous, but there was no turning back. Humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. As he moved forward, his resolve only strengthened. He wouldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. In the midst of all the chaos and destruction, Benner found himself driven by a single thought. Earth would not fall. Not while he and his comrades still fought. The battle for survival was a hard one, but the fight had only just begun. The alien forces had pressed forward relentlessly, and Earth's defenses were growing weaker by the hour. Benner, though still fighting fiercely, couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that humanity's survival was hanging by a thread. The skies above had been filled with the thunderous roar of alien ships, and the streets below were a nightmare of destruction and chaos. Despite their best efforts, the humans were clearly outnumbered and outgunned, facing an enemy with advanced weaponry and technology. Benner's mentor, Commander Lyons, a battle-hardened leader with decades of experience, had been silent for hours, his mind working over the battle plans, trying to figure out how they could turn the tide. The commander's eyes, usually filled with confidence, were clouded with the weight of their desperate situation. It was clear to him that no amount of advanced weaponry or strategy would be enough to defeat the alien mothership, the heart of their invasion. Humanity's last hope lay in one final desperate measure: a suicide mission. Gathering the remaining soldiers, Commander Lyons stood before them, his voice solemn but resolute. "We don't have time left. The alien mothership is too powerful for our forces to take down conventionally. But we have one shot. A small team, a covert strike on their mothership's heart. It's a one-way trip, no return. We must destroy them from within." Benner's heart dropped. A suicide mission. He felt the gravity of the commander's words in his chest. He looked around the room, the faces of his comrades set in grim determination. They all knew the truth. There was no turning back from this. If they failed, humanity would be lost. He felt the weight of it all, the lives of billions resting on the shoulders of a few. The silence stretched on, but Benner could feel his pulse racing. He had just come to terms with his fear of battle, his struggles to keep fighting when every instinct screamed to flee. But now, facing this ultimate decision, the fear gripped him again, fiercer than ever. Could he do it? Could he make the sacrifice that was required to save everyone? Then, as if reading his mind, Commander Lyons turned to him, his eyes locked with Benner's, understanding passing between them. "Benner," he said quietly, "I know this isn't easy, but you're the one I trust to lead this mission. You've proven yourself time and time again. We have no choice now." Torn between fear and duty, Benner made a decision. He raised his hand, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'll do it, sir. I'll lead the mission." Commander Lyons nodded, a small smile crossing his face. "Good man. We'll all do our part. Now go, and make sure it counts." The plan was set in motion immediately. Benner and a small team of soldiers were chosen to board a special stealth ship equipped with an EMP device capable of disabling the alien mothership systems. It was their only chance to stop the invasion, and they had to get close enough to deliver the EMP. The ship's cloaking technology would keep them hidden long enough to strike, but once they deployed the EMP, they would have no way of escaping. As Benner and his team prepared to board the stealth ship, his heart felt heavy. The weight of the mission, the knowledge that they might not return, pressed on him like a physical force. He thought of his family, his friends, and the planet they were fighting to protect. They had no other choice. The time for hesitation had passed. As they soared toward the mothership, their cloaking device worked flawlessly, keeping them out of sight of the enemy. But the closer they got, the more resistance they faced. The alien forces, alerted to the human ship's presence, sent waves of fighters to intercept them. The stealth ship's shields flickered under the onslaught of enemy fire, but it held together. Benner's team fought back, using everything they had to keep the ship intact. It was then that Benner saw it. Commander Lyons, having followed them in a secondary ship, had positioned himself to provide cover. As the alien forces surrounded the stealth ship, Lyons made a decision that would change everything. In a move of pure selflessness, he flew his ship directly into the heart of the alien swarm, drawing their fire away from Benner's team. His ship was hit, exploding into a burst of flames and debris. Benner's heart stopped. "No," he yelled, watching as the commander's ship disintegrated. His mentor, his leader, had sacrificed himself to ensure the mission could continue. The grief hit Benner like a wave, but he couldn't afford to dwell on it. Lyons' sacrifice had given them a chance, and they couldn't waste it. Through the chaos, Benner and his team pressed on, knowing that this was their final chance to save humanity. The stealth ship systems were on the verge of shutting down from the constant attacks, but they had made it to the alien mothership. It loomed ahead of them, a massive, towering structure of alien technology, filled with soldiers and drones. Benner felt his hands shake as he prepared to deploy the EMP device. He knew what was at stake. His heart was heavy with loss, but there was no time for mourning. He activated the EMP, sending the pulse deep into the mothership's core. The shockwave rippled through the alien ship systems, short-circuiting everything in its path. The mothership's once powerful weapons went dark, and its shields flickered out. The invasion was crippled. Benner's heart pounded as he watched the results of their efforts unfold. The alien forces were stunned, disorganized, and helpless. Earth's forces, bolstered by this victory, began to retaliate, pushing the invaders back. Humanity had won a temporary victory, but it had come at a heavy cost. As Benner and his team limped back to Earth's defenses, their hearts heavy with grief, they knew one thing for sure. Commander Lyons' sacrifice had saved humanity. The fight was far from over, but the first victory had been won. And for that, Benner could hold his head high. He had done his duty. Now it was time to honor the memory of those who had fallen and continue the fight for Earth's survival. The battle for Earth had stretched longer than anyone anticipated. The alien forces, now without their mothership, were reeling from the devastating blow they had suffered. But despite their confusion, the invaders were not yet defeated. They had fought for too long and lost too much to retreat without one final attempt to escape. Earth's forces, battered and bruised, had fought harder than anyone could have imagined. But they knew the war was far from over. Benner stood at the forefront of the human resistance, his face smeared with dirt and his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Yet despite the bruises, the scars, and the loss of so many comrades, he had never felt more alive. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about fighting for something greater than themselves. It was about protecting Earth, their home, the place that had nurtured generations of humans and now stood on the edge of annihilation. In the days that followed the EMP strike, Earth's soldiers had rallied, uniting in a final push to prevent the remaining alien forces from regrouping. The world, once fractured by politics and conflict, now stood as one, united under the banner of survival. Nations that had once been enemies shared resources, technologies, and soldiers in a desperate effort to strike back. Benner's team, alongside thousands of others, launched coordinated strikes on the retreating alien warships. The once mighty invaders, crippled by their mothership's destruction, now had nowhere to hide. They were forced to fight or die. Every human who had ever held a weapon now found themselves on the front lines. Civilians were helping too, working together to repair damage and assist in any way they could. The streets were filled with soldiers, civilians, and families who had come together for the final battle. Benner had never seen such unity, such strength. As Earth's military forces took to the skies, they launched an orbital bombardment that tore through the remaining alien stronghold in Earth's orbit. The sheer power of the strikes was enough to shake the ground beneath them, and the once immense alien fortress crumbled, piece by piece. Yet, even as Earth celebrated these early victories, the real fight was still unfolding. Alien warships scattered across the sky, their final desperate attempts to escape Earth's orbit met with fierce resistance. Close-quarter combat raged both in space and on the ground as human forces boarded the alien ships, determined to prevent them from leaving. The air was thick with the sounds of battle, laser fire, explosions, and the roar of engines in the heat of conflict. Benner and his squad found themselves in the heart of one such confrontation. They had infiltrated an alien warship, one of the last in the fleet, and fought their way through its metallic corridors. Alien drones and soldiers, once their masters, now seemed like rabid animals cornered and ready to fight to the death. Benner's breath was ragged. his hand shaking as he gripped his weapon tightly. He could feel the adrenaline surging through his veins. Each second felt like an eternity. The moment they reached the command center of the alien ship, the final showdown began. Alien commanders, their eyes glowing with cold alien intelligence, scrambled to stop the humans from disabling their ship. The air was filled with the crackling of energy weapons, and Benner's squad moved swiftly and efficiently, clearing room after room, their hearts pounding in their chests. The ship, once a symbol of alien dominance, was now a battleground where human courage was the deciding factor. Benner's leadership was tested like never before. Each decision, each command, was a matter of life and death. His thoughts flashed back to Commander Lyons, his mentor who had given everything for this moment. Lyons had always been a beacon of strength, someone who had never doubted humanity's potential. Benner could hear his mentor's voice in his mind, urging him forward. Lead, Benner. Lead for all of us. With Lyons's memory in his heart, Benner pushed forward, guiding his team through the final phases of the fight. They reached the central control panel of the alien ship, and with a quick series of commands, they set the ship to overload. The alien warship shook violently as its systems failed, the once sleek exterior now glowing with the fire of destruction. Just as they were about to board their extraction ship, Benner looked out into space, watching as the remaining alien warships were obliterated by Earth's coordinated strikes. The sound of distant explosions echoed in his ears. Earth's military had delivered the final blow. The alien forces were on the brink of total annihilation. The fight wasn't over yet, but the tide had turned. Humanity had held its ground, defied the odds, and now the alien invaders were retreating. As the last of the alien ships burned in the atmosphere, the survivors of the battle looked up at the sky, now free from the threat that had once seemed unstoppable. Benner knew they had won, but the victory came at a great cost. The scars of this war would be felt for generations, and many heroes would be remembered for their sacrifices. But in that moment, standing on Earth's soil, looking at the horizon, Benner felt a sense of hope, something that had been lost amidst the chaos of battle. They had faced impossible odds, and yet they had emerged victorious. Humanity had made its stand, and in the end, they had prevailed. The battle was finally over. The once menacing shadow of alien ships that had darkened the skies above Earth was now a distant memory. The dust had settled, the last of the alien invaders had been driven off, and the planet stood victorious. It was a hard-won triumph, a battle fought with blood, sweat, and tears, but the humans had done it. They had held their ground, against all odds, and sent the alien forces fleeing back into the depths of space. Benner stood in the middle of what had once been a war-torn battlefield. Around him, the wreckage of alien ships and destroyed war machines littered the landscape. The Earth's military had cleared the skies of enemy ships, and the cities that had been ravaged were now slowly rebuilding. The sound of rebuilding efforts echoed across the planet, but there was also a hum of something else. It was the sound of hope, of a future reborn from the ashes of destruction. As Benner looked around at the faces of the soldiers and civilians who had fought alongside him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Each person had played a part in this victory, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant they might have seemed. Together, they had defeated an overwhelming enemy. Together, they had proven that humanity, despite being on the brink of extinction, was not a species to be underestimated. Benner's thoughts turned to the sacrifices made. He thought of Commander Lyons, who had given his life to ensure their success. Lyons's words still rang in Benner's ears. Lead, Benner. Lead for all of us. That sacrifice had been the turning point, the moment when hope had seemed all but lost, but the spark of rebellion had ignited again. The weight of that loss still weighed heavily on Benner, but there was also a sense of peace in knowing that Lyons's sacrifice had not been in vain. The world was celebrating its victory, but Benner knew that this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Humanity had not just survived the alien invasion, they had thrived. They had proven that, Despite being an underdog, they could stand toe-to-toe with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy and come out on top. The aliens had underestimated Earth and its people, and now they knew better. Around Benner, people were cheering, hugging, and raising their voices in celebration. The streets were filled with flags and banners proclaiming humanity's victory. The once bleak and hopeless world had transformed into a beacon of resilience, a symbol of strength and unity. Nations that had been divided for so long now stood together, united by the common cause of survival. There were no more borders, no more divisions. There was only humanity, standing as one. Benner smiled softly, his eyes scanning the faces of the people around him. He had been just one of many, but somehow he had become the face of the victory. A hero, though he never sought that title. He had done what he had to do, for his friends, for his family, and for the future of humanity. But now, as he stood among the people, he realized that the true heroes were not just the soldiers who fought on the front lines. The true heroes were the civilians who had stayed behind, who had given everything to ensure the survival of their species. The farmers, the doctors, the teachers, all of them had played a part in this victory. As Benner stood there, lost in thought, a new message flashed across the news broadcasts. It was a message from the alien race that had once believed they were invincible. From the safety of their distant homeworld, they watched as Earth, battered but unbowed, celebrated its hard-won victory. The message was brief, but the tone was unmistakable. Humanity has earned its place in the galaxy. You are no longer the insignificant race we once thought you were. You are now a force to be reckoned with. The words sent a ripple of shock through the people of Earth. They had always known that the alien invaders had seen them as weak, as nothing more than a primitive species with no place in the vastness of space. But now, for the first time, that perception had changed. Humanity had proven itself, not just to the aliens, but to the universe. Earth was no longer the underdog. It was a rising power, a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. Benner stood tall, his chest swelling with pride. He knew that there would be challenges ahead. The Earth was far from perfect, and the scars of the war would take years to heal. But for the first time in history, humanity had the opportunity to shape its own future. They had earned their place among the stars, and with that came the possibility of exploring the vast reaches of space, of discovering new worlds, and of forging alliances with other civilizations. The galaxy was vast, and the future was uncertain, but for the first time, humanity was no longer on the edge of extinction. The story of Earth's survival would be told for generations to come, a story of resilience, sacrifice, and triumph against the odds. Benner knew that this victory was not just about defeating an alien invasion. It was about the spirit of humanity, the will to survive, and the unyielding belief that they could overcome any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it seemed. As the celebrations continued, and the stars above twinkled brightly in the sky, Benner couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Humanity had fought for its place in the universe, and now it had earned it. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it was full of possibility. And for humanity, that was all that mattered.